So welcome to The Truth About Chefpreneurship. And I specifically wanted to do this video because I wanted to share all the things that I've learned from having a food business since I was 15 and coaching a myriad of culinary entrepreneurs over the years. And this is kind of what I wish someone would have told me in an earlier phase of my business. Maybe not necessarily at the beginning of my business, like if I hadn't gotten started, but when I was a couple of years in, I feel like these are all the things that I wish someone would have told me. So I want to start by saying that a lot of people talk about starting your culinary business, right? So if you search online, if you are having conversations, there's a lot of resources about getting started. And I think that's fantastic. But it's a very different conversation when you talk about sustaining your culinary business and then scaling and growing that culinary business. And so this video is specifically for you if you've been in business for a while, but you feel like something's missing, right? Like you're making progress, but there's always this feeling that there's something you don't know, okay? And so this is what I always like to say, and I've always told my clients over years, like people will tell you, like, follow your passion, they said. Start your own business, they said. You're such a great chef. You'll be great at this, they said. You love to cook, they said. It'll be fun, they said. And it was fun. And it can be fun until you realize that there is a big difference between being a great chef and having a successful culinary business, that one doesn't automatically equal the other, right? Because there are so many wonderful chefs out there who are, not having the kind of business that they want, not making the kind of revenue that they want, not having the kind of lifestyle that they want. And then there are other chefs, cook people who have culinary businesses, and you're like, they're fine, but they're nothing to write home about. And they seem enormously successful, right? And we're going to talk about why that is. And if you find yourself in the camp of people where you're like, I know I'm an amazing chef or culinary entrepreneur, and I'm not getting the results that I want to get out of my business, we're going to talk about why that is. So first, I kind of want to break it down and say, there might be some things you're experiencing if you're watching this video, and we're going to dive deep into all of these as we go through this. I guess this is a training, if you will. So you may be in the bucket of feast or famine, right? Which is you have inconsistent incomes. Maybe there's parts of the year where your business does fantastic, and then there's parts of the year where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to hit my monthly goals, right? Or it could be 1 month you're up, 1 month you're down, or 1 month you're making X amount of dollars and the next month you're making half of that, right? And if, at the end of the year, it looks like you had a great year, but month to month, it was like a roller coaster ride. Or you could be in the feast and famine where it's like, it just in general, it's just not enough, right? Like, yes, you have a couple of great months or seasons, and then the rest of the year just feels like a dud. And when you get to the end of the year, it's like, that's all that I made. Something is wrong. Or you're like, I'm bringing in a lot of money, but when I get to the end of the year, like I'm in the red, you know what I mean? And you're like, what happened? It's almost like you lost money over the year, right? So you might be in the feast and famine bucket, right? Or you might be in the feast and fatigue, which is maybe it's not feast or famine, but you're making great money in your culinary business, but you're exhausted, you're tired. You're working all the time, right? You're booked, you're busy, you're burnt out, right? And you're like, I don't know if I can sustain this. I don't know if I can keep this up. Like, is this what it takes for me to be successful? Because maybe you graduated from feast and famine, but the way you did it put everything on you, right? And has you working all the time, okay? Or you could have graduated from feast and fatigue, but you're feast and frustrated. You're like, okay, I may not be working myself to the bone, and right, I may not be having feast or famine, but you're making great income, but you're always stressed about where your next client is going to come from, if you're going to make your revenue for the next month. And it's like, yeah, you're making great income, but it's almost like you kind of don't know how it's happening, but you're just glad that it is happening. But at the same time, it makes you anxious. It gives you anxiety, right? You're doing 11 things in your business, and you're not actually sure which ones are working. So what you do know is like you're not in feast or famine, like business is doing well, but it's almost like you don't even know, you're just like, I got to keep doing all the things because I don't know which one of these things is actually holding me up, or which 2 or 3 of these things is actually holding me up. And also you may be feeling stuck, hit a plateau, right? You might have been like, okay, I keep to just be living at this same level. And also you could be in the space where it's like, maybe you're not experiencing any of that, but you're just not attracting the kind of people that you really want to work with, but you're taking them on because you don't want to be in the feast and famine, right? And so you're really like, something's got to change, right? So you could be any combination of these. There could be other things that you are experiencing on why you're here. And, you know, you're experiencing that, but you might be feeling frustrated, stressed, tired, burnt out. You might be ready to quit. Right? You might have that season of like, can I just burn this whole thing to the ground and start over, or do something completely different? You might be overwhelmed, exhausted. Confused is one that people don't talk about enough, which is sometimes when you're like, you've been in your business for a while and it's working, but it's like, well, I don't know what to do next though, right? So how do I get from this level to the next level? And you feel confused. And sometimes that is like excruciating, to just feel like, okay, I'm on this hamster wheel and I don't know how to get off and get to the next level, right? Maybe you don't have any work-life balance, no self-care, right? So maybe you're not eating well, maybe you're not sleeping well, maybe you're not taking care of yourself, maybe you're not exercising, maybe you put your personal life on the back burner. Can we talk about it, right? Maybe you want to be dating, but you're working all the time. Maybe you want to start a family, but you're working all the time, right? Maybe, there's other hobbies and interests that you want to, explore, but you're working all the time, right? You may have reached a point where you're not sure if you enjoy this anymore. And maybe you're wondering if you made a mistake with this business. Like, is this the right model for me? Is this the right industries? I've had all of these. I've experienced all of these at some point in my culinary entrepreneurship journey. And I kind of want to talk about it. And here's the thing, what you want is simple. This is what I wanted. This is what I bet you want. If you're watching this video, you want a business that's sustaining and growing, right? Where the income is reliable, but constantly increasing. It's enjoyable and stress-free. The whole reason you started a business is because you want the time, the lifestyle, the creativity, the freedom, the money, everything. And it's like, when everybody was encouraging you a couple of years ago to start this thing, they didn't take in consideration all of this, right? So you've been doing all the things, right? Because you've tried to get out of this feeling, and maybe, the things that got you out of one season of business, you're trying them again. So you've been doing all of the things, right? So you have a lot of questions. Still, how much should I charge? How do I find more clients? How do I market my business? How do I take time off without losing income, right? How do I bring the fun back? How do I enjoy this again? All of that. So, like I said, you've been doing all the things. Maybe you switch business models, right? At one point you were doing this, now you're doing this. Maybe you decided to add in a cookbook. Maybe you started to add in content creation. Maybe you just thought, maybe I should start influencing. Like, you've added all these things to your business, right? Maybe you said, you know what, I just need to post on social media more, right? That's it. If I could just, get more people in the door and I post on social media more, that'll solve all my problems. Or maybe you thought, you know what, maybe I'll lower my prices and do that. Maybe I'll raise my prices and work with less people, or take on less clients or students, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Maybe you've taken on jobs and things that you don't like, that you don't even really do, right? Like for me, my thing has always been cooking classes. And then I would have people come along and be like, well, can you cater? Well, can you do a dinner party? Can you do this? And it was like, well, I don't really do any of that. But at that time, it was like, okay, I'm trying to get to a place where this business dream that they sold me, that I bought, rather, I won't say that they sold me, that I bought, like I'm trying to get to that, right? So you might have started offering other products and services. Maybe you felt like, okay, I should start a spice line, and maybe I should start this thing, and maybe I should do this. And you've added more things. Maybe you've hired a coach, or taken a course, right? And you're like, okay, well, that really didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Taking on work that you really don't want to do, working with people that you really don't like. Okay, can we talk about it? And so you're just like throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall trying to figure out, like, there's something I know that I don't know, but I don't know what that is. Okay. So we're going to get into what that is, but I just wanted to make sure that, like, you know that you're in the right place. You know that, listen, I've been there. My clients have been there. And as we get into, like, what the truth of chefpreneurship is that nobody really tells you when you get started and, like, when you're in the thick of it, like, my goal is for you to feel like, oh, that's what it is, right? Because I feel like when you know what the issue is, I feel like when you know what the obstacle is that you're up against, like, knowing is half the battle, right? Because once you know, it's like, well, then I can do something about it. It's the not knowing that is excruciating. So here's the truth that no one is talking about. That when it comes to being a chefpreneur, a culinary entrepreneur, there's actually 3 roles in your business. And this is something I learned many, many years ago when I read a book called The E-Myth. I think I read this in, like, the early 2000s or the 2010s, right? And one of the things that they talk about in that book is that in every business there are 3 roles or 3 personalities, right? And that, you know, you have to kind of know which one you are, but even though you need all 3. And so they talked about there's a chef, there's a manager, and then there is a CEO or the entrepreneur, right? And so I changed the language a little bit for obviously to apply to us and what we do, which is there's the chef, there's a manager, and there's the CEO. And basically, when it comes to the chef or the technician, that's the person that's actually doing the work. And so for the purposes of this video, I'll use the example of someone who has a cooking class business. Obviously, that's what my expertise is in, right? So this is the instructor. This is the chef instructor, right? So this is the person that's shopping for classes. This is the person that's measing. This is the person that's teaching, right? They're actually doing the work of the business, right? So if you're doing personal chefing, if you're doing catering, if you're doing, you know, meal prep, whatever, you are actually, you know, when you're in technician mode is when you're doing your chef stuff, right? Like, you're doing the chefy things, right? So this is the execution of whatever your product and service is. So in this case, this is the cooking class instructor, the chef instructor teaching the class, prepping for it, doing all of that kind of stuff, right? And obviously, without that, you don't have a business. But then the next role in your business is the manager, right? This is the day-to-day activities. This is, you know, the administrative and the operations part of the business, right? So for our cooking class example, this is, okay, you know, people are registering for classes, making sure, like, if somebody asks for a refund, how do you are managing that, make sure the money comes in, right? Your bookkeeping, your accounting, right? Managing your food cost, okay? You know, making sure that responding to emails and phone calls, or, you know, depending on whether you have an online cooking class business or an in-person cooking class business, right? But getting people registered and all that kind of stuff, like the operations, you know, planning the menus and the classes and all of that kind of stuff and all the things that it takes so that the chef instructor or the technician can do their job, even if you are both of these people, right? You know, this is like your office days. This is your administrative work. This is the operations, okay? And then the third role in your business, right, is the CEO. This is the person, or this is the part of the business where you're thinking about, like, how do I grow my business? How do I expand it, right? How do I increase revenue, right? You know, what's the next phase of this business looks like? How do I hit these goals? Okay. And if you are a solopreneur, you are all 3 of these. Okay. At any given moment, right? But I think it's helpful to know that you're actually fulfilling multiple roles or multiple personalities, right? And so what I want to say is most people spend their time here, right? Most specialists spend their time here. And I think that's because that is the skill set that we have. So whether we came from the food service industry, whether we were career changers like I was, right? You know, you graduate from culinary school, whatever the case may be. This right here is what made you want to be in the industry. You have a love for the actual thing that you do, right? Whatever it is, cooking, cake decorating, chocolate, candy, whatever it is, you have a love for that thing. I'm obviously talking about a cooking class model here, but if even if you were like a food blogger, like you got into it because you like to cook, and most people spend their time here, right? The thing is, you quickly learn in business, right? If you've been in business a couple of years, that this can eat up a lot of your time, right? You start to realize like you can do this part with your eyes closed. This, being the manager, can eat up a lot of time, especially if you don't have systems in place, right? Responding to emails, inquiries, invoices, proposals, scheduling classes, right? Trying to get private events. What is your class calendar going to look like? How many classes are you offering this month, right? Getting people enrolled, okay, setting up for like all of these things, right? And so you bounce back and forth between chef and manager. The thing is, the reason why you're probably here watching this video is because you want the business to grow and you want to not experience all those things that we talked about just a few slides ago, right? And so if that's the case, this is where you need to be spending your time. And I think this is one of the hardest realizations for chefs, culinary entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs. In reality, I think this is one of the hardest transitions, is to go from spending 80% of your time here to 80% of your time here, right? Like chef CEO. So it's almost as if, you need to spend, let's just say 60% of your time here, 20% of your time here, and 20% of your time here if you're an individual, right? Obviously, if you have people working with you, depending on, the business model you have, you should be living between here, or ideally living in here. And I think one of the truths that I want to talk about is that when you start your own business, the misconception is that you'll be living over here, right? That you'll be living in the thing that you love that got you in the business in the first place, right? And so you have to decide, like, where do I want to live? Okay, if I want the goals that I want for my business, I either need to hire somebody for this part, right? And just essentially become an employee in my own business, right? Or I need to live here, or I need to decide, now that I know that, right? Do I really want to be on my own? Because the benefits of entrepreneurship, we love it, right? We get the creative freedom. We get to execute our ideas. We get to cook what we want to cook. The possibility of, this freedom that we have is there. The reality is that freedom is there, but it's over here. And nobody really tells you like, oh, just keep in mind that when you become your own boss or when you start your own business, you actually won't be doing the thing that you think you'll be doing, right? This is one of the biggest misconceptions. We think, maybe we worked for a company, or maybe we've done stuff for family or friends. And so we started this business because we were like, I'm really good at this. Teaching cooking classes, entertaining, etc., not knowing that the real work is over here. And here's the thing. I want to say this. Culinary school doesn't teach entrepreneurship. They teach you this. They teach you how to be really good at this, and we're going to get into it. And so I want to say this. One of the first truths is that in order to have the kind of culinary business you want, to hit the revenue goals that you want, to have the lifestyle you want, the stress-free, all of that kind of stuff or whatever, is really leaning into the acceptance that you're going to have to go from chef to CEO. I have a good friend who owns a dance studio, went to school for dance, went to college for dance, right? All that kind of stuff. And she teaches classes. And this is a great tie-in to those of us who have cooking class businesses. And she is teaching less and less classes, which she loves, because she was like, oh, I have to live here if I want this thing to be sustainable, if I want it to be what I really want it to be. But I'd love to be here. I spend a lot of time over here and I'm getting help with that, but I need to be here. I have another friend who, a little less creative, but still a business owner, went to, got a degree in accounting, whatever, worked in accounting. She was the technician, and then decided, I'm going to have my own accounting firm. She does no accounting. She lives here, right? And that's how her accounting firm has been able to grow. So I want to say this, right? Because one of the things, one of the mistakes that I've made, one of the myths that I believe is that, oh, if I go to culinary school, become like a professional, okay, and get degreed and credentialed, that's going to help me with my business. Well, it doesn't teach entrepreneurship. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with that. It wasn't designed to. Because the reality is culinary school teaches you the art of cooking. What you need in order to be successful is the skills of business and the skills of cooking. So let's look at it like this. Culinary school or being a chef is going to teach you about food safety and sanitation, knife skills, mother sauces, different cooking methods, sauteing, broiling, roasting, frying, deep frying, pan shallot, braising, all of that kind of stuff, right? It's going to teach you about flavor profiles and combinations, right? And different, ways of putting together flavors from around the world. It's going to teach you about taste, texture, and temperature. It's going to teach you about umami and sweet, sour, salty, bitter, right? It's going to teach you all of that. Plating and presentation is going to teach you about, menu creation and recipe development. It's standardized recipes. It's going to teach you about food costing and identifying equipment and how to move around the kitchen with speed and safety and efficiency and how to get food out to the table in a reasonable amount of time. And it's probably even going to teach you about like some restaurant management skills, right? And it's going to teach, maybe you had a capstone project about if you had to, build a restaurant from scratch and what would the menu be and your capital expenditures. But that's about as far as it goes because it's teaching you the art of cooking. The thing is, the art of cooking is not the thing that's going to make you successful. And that's another hard thing to accept. And I want to go back here. It's teaching you to do this. And if that's what it's designed to do. And this is important. However, when it comes to entrepreneurship, that is not the thing as a standalone that's going to make you successful, right? But when you think about business, okay, now it's like, well, what's my unique selling proposition, my USP? How do I get clear on my ideal client and my avatar, right? How do I develop my products and services, my offerings, the thing that I'm actually selling? What are the standard operating procedures for my entire business? Not just that, right? So if I'm using the cooking, class example, yes, you want to have some standard operating procedures for how you execute a class, but you also want to have standard operating procedures around your marketing, around your finance, around your food costs, right? Around, class creation and all that kind of stuff, right? You've got to learn about the tools, technology, and automation for your specific business. You need to know about, well, what's a client journey and how does that work and why is it important to me? And sales funnels, right? How do I, constantly get people to find out about my business and eventually get them to pay money? The difference between marketing, advertising, and public relations. Why do I need all three? What's the difference? How do I do them, right? Marketing in itself is how do I get new clients? How do I, lead gen, lead capture, lead nurture, lead magnets, lead conversion, right? All of those things, copywriting and messaging, how do I speak to my ideal client to let them know that this is the place for them, right? Copywriting, messaging, right? Branding. This is also KPI metrics and data analysis. Am I making decisions in my business based off how I feel, or am I making decisions in my business based off of facts? That I'm tracking the data. Oh, this is my fill rate for and enrollment rate for my cooking classes, right? This is how many people are coming back, right? These days of the week sell better than others. These type of classes sell better than others, right? This class makes the most money. This class costs too much. Like all of these things, contracts, waivers, policies, right? Mitigating your legal risk, okay? Customer service in itself has 13 checkpoints, right? Client experience, which is different from customer service. Brand development, right? Accounting, finance, your profit and loss, forecasting, client retention, ascension, lifetime value of the client. Like this is a whole separate thing. So when people are telling us or told us, or we bought into, hey, yes, I want to have, my own business. We knew nothing about this. We knew this. And the reality is you need both. I'll never forget, I saw a quote or a video snippet from Steve Harvey many years ago. And whether you like him or not as a comedian, whether you think he's funny or not, is irrelevant. What he said was so true. He said that when he first got into comedy, one of the things that he realized was that he was like, I got to make a good show. Like, I got to be funny. And so he said he spent all his time trying to craft a good show, the art of comedy, right? And then he said, I quickly realized I can have the best show in the world, But if those tickets weren't selling and people weren't there and they weren't coming back and nobody knew who I was and I couldn't fill the seats and, working with venues and promoters and all that kind of stuff, whatever, then I quickly, despite having the best show, would not have a career. And now that's the science, that's the business of comedy. And so he said it really is, that's why they call it show business, because you have to have a great show, but you also have to understand the business side. And there is I hate to call him a social media comedian, but that's how he got his start. And he goes by the name of Kev on Stage. And he's talked, at length in some of his interviews about how he is not the funniest person that he knows. He's even not the funniest person in his peer group of comedians, right? And so he knows that I'm good at the art of comedy, but I'm not the best. But what he has been able to do is he has mastered the business of comedy, which has made him leaps and bounds more successful than a lot of his peers in the industry, because he's done that. And here's the thing, we see it all the time. You've seen it all the time where, let's think about, and it could be anything, but let's think about a singer, right? And you're like, I don't understand what the hype is. Why? There's people that can sing them under the table. Insert your least favorite artist that's somebody else's favorite artist, right? Pick a genre. It doesn't even matter, right? And then maybe that person has a huge fandom and they're wildly successful. And you're like, it's not that they're bad. I just don't think they're that great, right? Because you're looking at this. And what they have figured out is they could be average or above average. They could also be mediocre at this and still be more successful than someone who is the best at singing, because they have learned the music business, right? You could take this into any industry, right? Even think about this. Think about if you've ever worked in corporate America, there's probably been a time where maybe somebody got promoted and you were like, I don't understand why they got promoted. They're actually average at best at their job, right? The actual thing that they do, the art of the thing. I don't care, even if you don't consider it art, whatever their job function is, right? You're probably like, they're not that great. But what they have figured out is the science of being an employee, and that there's a whole other side than just the quality of work. And so this is another truth that I think is really hard for people to accept, is that to be successful in your culinary business is not about being the best chef. And as much as we would like it to be, it is not. We've seen this in food brands that and I won't name any names, right? But there are fast food brands whose food is not even average. It is below average, right? And they are wildly successful because they have mastered business, okay? They have mastered business. And so what I want you to take from this section is that wrapping your head around, if you want to be successful in your culinary business at the next level, then you need to fall in love with the business side of your business as much as you are in love with the food side of your business, right? That you want to master the skills of business as much as you've always wanted to master the skills of cooking, right? That also you will be spending most of your time, let's go backwards, here versus here, right? Let's go backwards, right? That you started here because this is what you love to do. But the truth about chefpreneurship is you're going to live over here. And over time, probably more so here, right? In the CEO area. So, I really want you to take a look at this, and I really wanted to kind of break it down on the screen, because if you've been like, I don't get it. I'm the best at what I do. I know my food is delicious. I know my classes are amazing. I know X, Y, Z. And I want to say this also, that this is not an issue of ability, right? You are amazing at what you do, right? I have no doubt about that, right? This is not an issue of intelligence, of you being like, I'm smart. How come I'm not able to figure out this next level, right? This is not an issue of intelligence, right? This is not even an issue of effort or like work ethic. It's like you're willing to do the work. You are doing the work, which is why you've been able to be in business this long, right? It's because what nobody told you is that this is your new job, the science of business. And if you really want to be mega successful, is you can juggle both of these at the same time, right? If you think about somebody like Whitney Houston, right? I'll use her as an example. That the reason why she was such a mega superstar is because she had mastered the art of singing, right? I mean, phenomenal. She had natural talent, obviously, but she had mastered the art of singing, and she had mastered the instrument of her voice. And also, we know some people that can sing people under a table, right? And why haven't they had the same level of superstardom as somebody like Whitney Houston? Because along came Clive Davis, who knew how to market Whitney, how to package her, how to present her. Here's the kind of song she needs to sing. Here's the kind of image we need to present. Here's the places she needs to go. Here's how much money we need to command for her, right? Here's how Whitney was a model before, so she was beautiful, right? Here's what TV show she needs to be on. We need to get her to sing, the national anthem. He knew how to market her. He knew how to present her. He knew how to package her to the public. He knew who her target demographic needed to be for her to make the kind of money. And so what he saw was someone who was masterful at this, and he knew he was masterful at this. And that is how you created a superstar, right? But there are also people who are okay at this and masterful at this. And that is how they became wildly successful in their business. So, when I say I want to tell you the truth about chefpreneurship, like there's so many things, right? It's accepting the reality that being the best at what you do doesn't mean you're going to be the most successful. It's accepting the reality that having a successful culinary business is more about understanding business than it is about food. The food needs to be good. Whatever you're doing, cooking classes, dinner parties, catering, it needs to be good. Right? It's hard sometimes to accept that that's actually not the most important thing. And we want it to be. And in a perfect world, it would be. But it's not the most important thing. It is important. It's not the most important thing. And also realizing that to have a successful business, to overcome that feast or famine, that feast and fatigue, that feast and frustrated, that you will eventually, unless you decide that you just want to go back and work for somebody else because you just want to do the cooking part, right? Or unless you want to hire somebody, that you will need to make that transition from chef to CEO. And that's where you'll be spending the majority of your time. So as we continue on to the next sections of this, right, I just want you to maybe pause this, take a moment, really look at what's on the screen in front of you and ask yourself, like, have I dug deep into this? And, you listen, your sheer work ethic and grit and determination and just, I'm going to go out and get it has got you to this business as far. But that's why you're exhausted, right? Because you're relying on sheer willpower and discipline when it's learning these things and having these things in place that's going to get you to the next level without being burnt out, right? Whether that's more revenue, whether that's more work-life balance, whether that's getting you the right kind of clients, right? Whether that's making sustainable income so you don't have feast or famine, right? Whatever the case may be, that next level that you want to get to, it's over here. It's not over here. It's under the science of business, not necessarily under the art of cooking. And think about it. This is why a culinary degree is a arts degree and a business degree is a science degree, right? So that's just something to think about. Now let's talk about creating that consistent income that you want in your business or scaling your business, right? Or getting to that work-life balance where, you've got this business, you're creating steady income, it's growing at a pace that is manageable, that you like, that feels good to you, but it's also giving you that quality of life that you want and that's one of the reasons why you're in business, okay? Because you want to do your own thing, but you also wanted to afford you a certain lifestyle. So let's get into that, right? So let's talk about your recipe for success, okay? And notice I didn't say secret for success, and we're going to talk about that. But your recipe for success is simply your unique skill set, plus your personalized and customized strategy for your business, plus the infrastructure of systems to sustain it. So this is your skill set, is your culinary ability, obviously, the art of this. And the strategy and systems is the science of business for your specific business, okay? Because when it comes to having a quote unquote recipe for success, there is no one size fits all. And I want to explain that. And that is, again, another truth that I want to share with you is that there's no one size fits all. There is no one, if you do it this way, you will absolutely be successful. And if you do it any other variation for that, you're absolutely going to fail, right? Because I think what happens a lot of times is when we reach an obstacle in our business, or we're not getting the kind of results that we want, right? Or we're in a season where it just doesn't, it's not working how we want it to work. It doesn't feel good to us. We think that there is some secret. We think that there is this one way. And if I do it this way, I have guaranteed success. And the reality is, well, that could be 50 million different ways, which is why there are so many different businesses, which is why there are so many different, variations on what people are doing. But this is why it's also very dangerous to look at what other people are doing, because you don't know, one, what their definition of success is. Two, when you're looking at what other people doing, you don't actually know if they're successful. And three, you can't see behind the curtain, right? And so a lot of times, whether you see people on social media or they seem to be all over TV, or it seems like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at their pictures or this or that, and all of these surface metrics, it may seem like they're successful. But what I can tell you from coaching chefs over the years, somebody can have 50,000 Instagram followers, 100,000, and not be making a dime. And somebody can have 1,500 and be making $250,000 a year or more. So again, it's going to be your unique skill set, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what comes easy to you that you do well, your personalized and customized strategy for your specific business, the kind of lifestyle that you want, what you want out of your business, and then the infrastructure of systems to sustain it. So let's get into it, right? So I want to talk about this. Let's talk about the strategy side first. I'm not going to talk about, obviously, the skill. Again, that's what culinary school was for. You've already got that. I'm assuming you know what to do to improve that if you just want to improve your skill set as a chef, as an instructor, all that kind of stuff, right? So I want to talk about strategy. And I want you to think about strategies like a GPS. I've talked about this a lot over the years and with my clients, and this is something that I really want to break down, because what I see happening a lot is people just grabbing tactics, just doing actions with no strategy. And I want to share with you why that's probably not the best course of action for you, and why it may have not yielded the kind of results that you were looking for. So I want you to think about the GPS in your car, right, or on your phone. And you know how GPS works. You open up the app and it uses a satellite to assess where you are, right? And then you type in your end coordinates. This is where you want to go. And then it gives you options, okay? It'll ask you, hey, do you want to go this way, or this way? Do you want to go the fastest route? Do you want to go the shortest route? Do you want to avoid highways, right? It'll show you that I normally would take you on this route, but there seems to be traffic for whatever reason. Do you want to go this alternate route? Okay. It's going to show you a variety of different things. And so what it's showing you is those options are the different strategies, if you will, that you can take to get there, right? And each one of those strategies is going to have you implement different actions, aka tactics, to get you there. Let me use another example. Let's say someone is on a weight loss journey, right? And I think this, change weight loss for weight gain, muscle gain, whatever you feel more comfortable with, right? And let's say they decide, okay, I want to release 20 pounds of weight. That's what I want to do. Or they want to gain 15 pounds of lean muscle, whatever the case may be, right? So what they're probably going to do is they're probably going to weigh themselves. They may, take their body mass index, body fat percentage. They may do all of that. They may, take their measurements with tape, whatever they're going to do, right? But they're going to have a starting point. And then that final number that they want on the scale, whether it's they want to drop 20 pounds or gain 15 pounds of lean muscle, that is their end goal. And now they have options on how to get there, right? So when it comes to weight loss, they can do a couple things. They could have weight loss surgery, which is an option, right? And they may say, you know what, that is the route that I'm going to have to go. And if they decide that they want to have weight loss surgery, then there are different things that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to find a doctor who specializes that. They're going to have to make an appointment. The doctor is going to do some assessments on them, tell them, you're a good candidate or you're not a good candidate, right? They're going to have to work with their insurance. They're going to have to schedule the surgery, prepare for the recovery, all that kind of stuff. And then they're going to have, some systems in place after surgery to maintain that, because there's going to be some parameters around their new lifestyle post-surgery. That's one whole strategy for them to release the 20 pounds. They could say, you know what? Actually, I think I want to take, a pill or a supplement or something that's going to, flush out the toxins, make me release the water weight, XYZ, right? And so they may go and get a prescription, and now they're going to go down a different path that's going to have them doing different activities, right? So now, maybe they're still possibly meeting with a doctor, maybe a natural practitioner, and maybe they're having different tests. And then instead of, scheduling surgery, they're going to the pharmacy and now they have to take this medication or these supplements with certain types of foods at certain types of day. And there's certain things they have to avoid and certain things they need to be mindful of. And then they need to have system in place on how they're going to maintain that goal after they get there, right? But that's another approach that they could take. Or they could say, you know what, I want to do diet and exercise. I want to go a more natural, holistic route. And they may say, okay, so now not only am I choosing diet and exercise, right? So nutrition and movement. Okay, well, which diet do I want to follow? What are going to be my eating parameters, right? And so now they may meet with a dietitian or a nutritionist, right? And they may, now they have an eating plan. And instead of going to the pharmacy or to the hospital for surgery, right now it's like, okay, I need to stock up my pantry. And then it's like, okay, well, what kind of movement do I want to do? Do I want to dance? Do I want to weight lift? Do I want to do Pilates? Do I want to do cardio? Do I want to do kickboxing? Do I want to swim? Do I want to walk, right? They're going to pick the option, and then they're going to think about how often. And that is another strategy. But all three of these roads will lead them to that final destination, right? Which is your goals. And so here's the thing. What I see people doing is they are picking tactics. So they haven't decided that nutrition and movement, diet and exercise, if you will, is going to be their strategy, right? And so they're off buying all these different things and getting a gym membership, when ultimately the strategy that may work best for them is weight loss surgery, or vice versa, right? And so strategies are your approach to the destination. And then your tactics are the specific actions that you're going to take to get there, right? So your strategy is your long-term plan. I talked about this, right? Do you want to take the fastest route, the shortest route, the highways, the tolls, the this, the that, or whatever? And then the tactics are the very specific actions that you're going to take. So when it comes to your business, right? This is why, again, I said, looking at what other people are doing is like very dangerous because you don't know where their end destination is. You don't know what their starting point was, right? And you don't know which path they're going down, right? Which strategy they have chosen. All you see is, they're doing these really cool reels on Instagram. I want to do those. Oh, wow, they're vlogging on YouTube. Oh, I want to vlog, right? Oh, they wrote a cookbook. Oh, they have spices. I want spices. Oh, they started teaching cooking classes to kids, but I want to teach cooking classes to adults, but maybe I should start offering kids, right? And so if you've done that, we've all done that. That's not something to beat yourself up about, right? But it's another thing that I want to say around the truth about chefpreneurship is that there are a lot of people online, in person, well-meaning, and they are giving you tactics. And the thing about that is the tactics don't work if they're not aligned with the right strategy. If you're trying to go to the downtown in your city and somebody's like, oh, you need to get off at exit 10, right? Like everything you want to find is off of exit 10, but exit 10 is in the suburbs, right? Like, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with getting off at exit 10 except for it's not getting me to my goals, right? And so when you hear these recommendations about how much you should post on social media, how much you should charge, what business you should be in, all these kind of things, if you don't run it through the filter of your strategy because you don't have one, that's why also you can get burnt out because you're trying all these different things, all these different tactics that you see people doing, and you don't know what their strategy is or was. You don't know what their starting point was. You don't know what their end destination was. Like, I want to give you an example of a chef local to where I live. And I remember when I first met this chef, he was, a private chef. He was cooking for he was private chefing for athletes, because in Dallas, obviously we have the Cowboys, we have the Mavericks, so there's lots of professional athletes here. And he was doing that, and he was kind of doing catering on the side. And we have something called the Texas State Fair. It's one of the biggest state fairs in the United States. And I remember one year he decided to have a booth at the state fair. And if you're not familiar with the Texas State Fair, it runs for like 2.5 months straight, 7 days a week, nonstop. And so when people sign up to vend at the Texas State Fair, you are committing to these like 16-hour days for like 2 months straight. Okay. And I remember thinking, that's interesting. I wonder why he's doing that, because it's grueling. Now, granted, there are businesses and people know that they do the 2 months out of the year, the Texas State Fair, they make all their money for the year, XYZ. And he was doing a type of cuisine, which was interesting, that he wasn't really known for. So I just remember watching, I was like, I'm wondering what's going on, right? He did it for 3 years. Now, somebody on the outside might be like, you know what? I want to do the state fair. That I probably can make great money doing that. And I can only work 2 months out of the year. But then fast forward after 3 years, and he opens up his own restaurant. Now, I immediately connect the dots, and I was like, oh, he was raising capital for his restaurant, because working at the state fair is very lucrative. But if you don't know that and you just watched what he was doing, you're like, why is he doing that? And, or somebody else could be like, that's cool. That was his end goal, was he wanted this restaurant, and now he has a very successful restaurant, right? And he needed capital, and he may not, I don't know. We don't know the inner workings of his business, gotten loans in this, but maybe he wanted a certain amount of it in cash, right? And so he decided, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the state fair for a couple of years in a row, and I'm going to stack cash, right? And so, when I go back to talking about feast or famine, feast and fatigue, feast and frustrated, and all these different things in your business, it's because what nobody tells you in the beginning is there's no one size fits all for your business. You have to have a strategy. Let me go back. You have to know where you are. You have to know where you want to be. And then you have to go, okay, there's 15 different ways I could get there. Which one of those ways, which one of those strategies is going to be the best for me, my skill set, my goals, my lifestyle, the kind of business that I ultimately want. And then once I decide on that course of action, then I can go in and do the different activities. It's like so many times I hear people say, oh, I don't want to market my business on social media. You don't have to. You don't have to, right? However, you need marketing. So then you need to go, okay, well then how do I want to market? What is going to be my strategy? And then I can implement the step-by-step actions, the day-to-day actions to do that. Okay. So, again, these are things I wish people would have told me. I spent so much time, and a lot of my clients, when they come to me, I can tell that they've spent so much time like, well, what's the formula? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And it's like, well, it depends. Do you want where are you now? We need to assess where you are now. Where do you want to go? Right? A lot of people don't even know really where they want to go. They're just like, well, I just want to make more money. Well, how much? Well, why? What does that look like? Okay, if you want more work-life balance, what do you want to do with that extra time? Do you want to sleep? Do you want to travel? Do you just want to lay around the house? Do you want to do other hobbies? Do you want to start a family? There's no right or wrong answer here, but you have to know, and then you have to go, okay, here's all the options on how to get there, right? And then here's the systems I need to put in place to sustain it. And I want to say this as a side note. Right. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but this is how you scale your business. Number one, you have to have a strategy. Okay. But I want to say this. If this is why I do not give blind advice via email and social media. Right. Because oftentimes over the years, I've gotten people who will message me and say, well, how much should I charge for this? Or how do I market my business? Or how do I start this? And to me, I consider it almost business malpractice, not for me to assess where you currently are and ask you a bunch of questions and then figure out where you're trying to go and then go, okay, if this is where you are and this is where you're trying to go, and then here's all the options right now based on that, this is the one that's best for you. The thing about that is that I consider that malpractice. So if people are just blindly giving you advice, they mean well, right? This is not malicious intent, but it's almost kind of like going to a doctor and them not running tests on you and them just prescribing you medication and they haven't done any kind of assessment. It's kind of like somebody doing repairs on your car. You tell them you hear this noise. They don't do a diagnostic. They're just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. It doesn't matter. Then they just start taking stuff out your engine, putting stuff in the engine, and have no idea what's going on in the side of your car. You would think that those people were crazy. And you're like, you're going to tear up my car. Right? If a doctor just started prescribing you medication, they didn't ask you any questions about your medical history or, take your temperature and your blood pressure and your weight and this, you'd be like, hello, excuse me, they'd be sued for malpractice, right? So I want to say that, okay? So having a strategy in your business is important. I think we think it's a nice to have, but that's where that confusion comes in. That's where that overwhelm comes in. That's where that overworking comes in, because it's like, well, we're not operating off on a plan. It's like getting your car and just starting to drive. The GPS can't kick back anything to you if you don't have the destinations in there, which is your goals. And if you don't select which way you want to go, can you imagine? You just like, I'm just about to get in the car and start driving. And to be fair, and in our defense, that's how a lot of us started our business. And we got somewhere, but then we looked up and we were like, I don't know if this is where I want to be. Because we just got in the car and started driving, right? So the second half of that, let's go back to the formula for success, right? So we talked about your personalized and customized strategy. And I really want to spend a lot of time on this because I just feel it's super, super, super important. The second part of the question that we're answering is, how do I create consistent income or scale my business, right? So we talked about your personalized and customized strategy. And now I want to talk about the infrastructure of systems to sustain it, right? So now let's talk about systems, okay? And this is something that I feel like I don't hear talked about enough in our space. We talk about food costs till we're blue in the face. And that is important because that is the artistic medium in which we work. Super important. I'm not negating that. This systems was the game changers. I want to say this right off the bat. There is no secret to success. Success is a system. Success in any area of your life requires a system if you want to maintain it. You cannot scale your business without systems. You are not going to create consistent income, sustainable income without systems, right? In your everyday life right now, we are surrounded by systems, okay? Everything in nature is running off a system. Everything in your body functions off of systems, right? Our lives, homes, cars, computers, cities, phone, community, all operate off of systems, right? So I want you to think about this, right? I mean, I don't care if you're talking about the Dewey Decimal System. I don't care if we're talking about the immune system, your respiratory system, your reproductive system, your cardiovascular system, your skeletal system, right? In nature, the ecosystem, right? The school system. And here's the thing, systems are so effective that whether they are good or you disagree with a system, they work. The prison system, right? Systems are sustainable, which is why you hear the phrase systematic fill in the blank, right? Because once a system is set up and in place and it's running, it's really, really hard for it not to be consistent, right? Your computer is running off of an operating system, right? In the background, okay? Our heart is pumping off of a system, right? We're breathing off a respiratory system that's working. We don't have to manually force ourselves to breathe, right? So your car is running off of a system, and there's multiple systems in your car, right? Your phone, we've got the school system, the healthcare system, the political system, right? We've got all these different systems in our lives, whether tangible, intangible, whether technology based, biologically based or societal based, right? And it's the same thing in our businesses, right? So when I showed you that slide that showed the art of cooking versus the science of business, all of those things that you saw on the right side, okay, are different systems that are required in your business if you want sustainable and scalable income in a business, right? And so one of the telltale signs that you don't have systems is that you're not getting the results that you want in a particular area, right? So I want to say this. Here's the 5 reasons you don't have sustained success, right? So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about your business like the human body, okay? Dis-ease occurs when there is a breakdown or malfunction of a completely or non-existent system, right? If your immune system is not working, you have disease, right? Dysfunction, okay? Abnormality or impairment in the function of a specified system, right? A family system, a marital system, right? A skeletal system, okay? Right? Dysfunction, disease, discomfort, an absence of comfort or ease, uneasiness, hardship, or pain. If you're having discomfort in your body, it's a sign that something's going on with one of your systems, right? Okay. If you're like, man, my stomach is hurting, there could be something going on with your digestive system, right? And so here's the 5 reasons you don't have sustained success in your business. But you could also apply this to your life, right? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. Number 1, there's not a system there at all, right? Or you have an old, outdated system, okay? So first is there's no system. Do you need to create a system for that specific area, right? Older, outdated system. Do you need to update or create a new system for a specific area? You have a broken system, right? So think about this, right? In a car, you hear screeching. That's your brakes, right? So that whole system that allows the car to stop, is it broken? Does it need to be fixed, repaired, replaced? That system, right? Your air conditioning system. How many of you live in a hot climate like I do? And if that air conditioning system breaks, there's a difference between if I got to get it fixed or if I got to replace it, right? But I'm in discomfort if I'm in Texas when it's 110 degrees and my air conditioning system breaks, right? Or you have the wrong or incongruent system, right? Which means maybe you're doing certain tactics and actions that are actually not going to get you the desired outcome that you want, right? Or you have an insufficient system. You have a partial system, okay, that needs to be enhanced or expanded, right? And so different symptoms require different strategies and systems, okay? And so I want to give you some examples, right? So let me move myself over here. Okay, so let's go back to what we talked about with the feast or famine, right? And I want to use a cooking class business. Like I said, this is my favorite thing. This is what I specialize in. This is who I help scale their businesses, is people who have cooking class businesses. Let's say it's feast or famine, right? And the symptom, let's say, is that this cooking school has a low fill rate or a low enrollment rate, meaning, let's say, we'll make it really simple. Let's say you offer 4 cooking classes a month and there's 10 spots in each class, but you're only getting 5 people to sign up for each class. That means you have a 50% enrollment rate. And so you're like, man, I feel like that's kind of low, right? And I would agree, 50% fill rate is a little low. So as a consultant, as a strategist, I'm going to look at that and say, okay, if you have a low fill rate, I'm going to look at multiple systems, because there could be multiple reasons or multiple ways why you're not getting the results that you have, right? The first thing I'm probably going to look at is your marketing. If you have inconsistent marketing, or marketing that is incongruent, or you have no marketing, that could contribute to why you have a low fill rate. I'm going to look at your pricing system, right? How are you priced? Okay, based on the kind of brand that you've chosen to have. I'm going to look at your sales skills, right? Because I'm going to look at, okay, well, what's the sales page for the classes looks like? Or if you're booking private cooking classes, I'm going to look at, well, like, what's your sales conversations looking like? And that whole system of sales, right? Which is different from marketing. I'm going to look at your class type and the system for that. How do you create classes? What kind of classes you're offering? I'm going to look at, your system for adding classes to your calendar. I'm going to look at class times, days, menus, the names of the classes. I'm going to look at if you have instructors. I'm going to look at the quality of instructors, right? Maybe people would like one certain instructor more than they like the other. Maybe they've had a great experience with one and maybe not so great experience with the other. I'm going to look at your branding. I'm going to look at all of these systems, because any one of these or any combination of these could contribute to your low fill rate, low enrollment rate, right? So if you're not somebody that has a cooking class business and you're watching this, right, you can take this same process and say, maybe I'm not booking enough clients for my catering business or for my dinner party business, or I'm not getting enough people to sign up for my events, or whatever the case may be. Well, it could be a lot of things, right? Based on that chart I showed you earlier. It's like going to a doctor and you say, you know what, my lower back is hurting. Okay. Well, that doctor might check your kidneys, and the doctor also may check your spine, but they also may check your neck, but they also may check your feet and ask you back on what shoes you wear, right? Because they know there could be several things contributing to that. They might even ask you if you're pregnant, right? Because particularly if you're a woman, they're going to ask you every single time, unless you no longer have a uterus, they're going to ask you every single time, are you pregnant, right? Because pregnancy can cause a lot of different symptoms, right? And so they're checking all these different systems. Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you exercise? Right? What have you been eating? Have you traveled recently? Do you have a history of this kind of illness? They're checking all these different systems, and they're auditing these different systems relative to the symptom. But let's say the same cooking class business, maybe they're not having feast or famine. Maybe what they're experiencing is the classes are doing well, but they're tired, right? They're like, I'm exhausted. Okay. I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at, well, what are their standard operating procedures to get these classes up and growing? What's the structure of the class, right? What kind of tools, technology, and automation systems do they have in place? What's their staffing looking like? What's their class mix? What's their class calendar looking like? What are their administrative systems looking like? What are their back end systems looking like? What are their marketing systems looking like? What are their pricing systems? Because could it be you're not charging enough, and so you're doing all these classes, right, and you're exhausted? Okay, that's just one possible system that would need to be audited to rectify the symptom, right? And then we would create a strategy around that. Okay. Again, let's move into a different issue. Let's say the same cooking school was like, okay, man, we're doing kids classes, but people keep calling us for date nights, right? Or for wine tastings. And it's like, well, I'm automatically going to look at, well, what is your branding? I'm going to look at your website and your social media and your marketing materials. I'm going to look at your unique selling proposition, and I'm going to, audit that. I'm going to look at your pricing, right? Are you priced like you're doing couples date night with wine and 4 courses for kids, right? What's your messaging looking like? What's your marketing? Okay. Who's your target audience? What kind of classes are you offering, right? What type of content is in the classes? What kind of content are you posting on social media, right? Because why would you be a cooking school for kids and you keep getting parents for date night, people wanting date night, right? Or vice versa, right? Let's say you only do classes for adults, but everybody keeps begging you to do a kids camp or classes for kids. What is happening that I'm having that experience, right? There's a breakdown in a system somewhere. Okay. And so let me go back. When it comes to your recipe for success, it's your skill set plus your customized strategy plus the infrastructure of systems to sustain it. Again, these are things that I wish people would have told me when I was a couple of years in business, because it would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of frustration and heartache from just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Realizing that when I face when I start experiencing a system in my business, it's not necessarily that I need to double down on what I'm already doing, because whatever I'm already doing has gotten me the symptom that I have. Right? Is that I'm currently experiencing something. Feast or famine, feast or fatigue, feast or frustrated. And I want to be over here, whatever your definition of not being in those 3 places are. And I need to figure out, okay, what is the strategy? And then what system? Do I have a system for that? Am I operating off an old system and time has changed? I need to update it. Is there a breakdown in the system? Do I have a wrong system, an insufficient system, right? And the thing is, nobody talks about this, because here's the thing. It makes it so much easier to diagnose and then go in and rectify the issue when you have systems in place. But when you have no systems in place, then you have no idea what's wrong. All you know is enrollment in my classes aren't where I want to be. And you may just assume it's the prices, or you may just assume it's the day of the week, but you have no way of knowing, right? But systems allow you to do that. And like I said, different systems require different strategies, and different symptoms, require different strategies and systems, right? So I want to say this: there is no secret to success. There is no secret. There's only strategy and systems, right? There's only strategy and systems. So here's some things I want you to keep in mind when it comes to strategies and systems. Most people are only focusing on the outcomes. I want to increase my revenue. I want to work less. I want to make more. I want to scale. I want more sustainable income, right? And they're not focusing on the inputs, which is the strategy and the systems, and then the tactics to get the results. It's kind of like if we go back to our weight loss example, somebody is like, I want to lose 20 pounds, and they're only focused on 20 pounds versus focusing on, okay, I registered for the gym. I got some new recipes. I stocked my freezer and refrigerator. I'm going to eat at home 6 days a week. I'm going to exercise 3 to 4 days a week, and I'm going to do that for 12 months, right? They're focusing on, I just want to lose the 20 pounds, not on the strategies and the systems and the day-to-day activities that's going to get them there, right? I also want to say this: chefpreneurship is a marathon and not a sprint, right? I think you know this. You've been in it for a couple of years. You know this already, right? And so sometimes people are looking for Band-Aid solutions, and it's like, no, you actually need a system, right? And you have to ask yourself, right, are you kind of the person that is like, okay, if there's a nail in my tire or my tread is showing, am I just going to try to patch it and keep on going? Or you're like, you know what? I need to replace the tire because I want to correct the system, right? And so you also want to think about, are you the kind of person that when you are sick, Are you someone who's just like, I just want to get rid of the cough and the sneeze? Or are you someone who's like, well, if I tackle the virus, by default, the cough and sneeze will go away? Because having a strategy and a system is not just for symptom mitigation. It's like, I want to fix the root cause of the problem. And by default, the symptoms will go away versus I just want to swing at the leaves, right? So when you see people just giving you quick tactics, oh, post on social media 3 times a day. Oh, you need to just run ads, right? And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with posting multiple times a day. If that tactic is part of a bigger strategy, there's nothing wrong with running ads if that fits into your larger strategy. But what they're trying to give you is a Band-Aid, right? They're not investigating what the root cause of what's happening in your business. And that's what leads to the frustration. And that's when you're like, I'm doing all the things and it's not working as fast or as effective or as well as I would like it to. And it's because there's no strategy there and there's no systems there. And I feel like this is what I call like, a big girl business conversation where it's like, you start to really ask yourself like, oh, I can't keep hopping from quick fix to quick fix. I need full solutions, right? That if I want this to be a sustainable business, I can't keep operating like a freelancer. I can't keep operating it like it's a side hustle, right? I really am going to have to start to make that transition from chef to CEO, right? And that I'm really, and to do that is going to require systems and strategies, right? So it's something to consider. I want you to keep that in mind. But the answer to how do you get the sustainable income, how do you scale your business is systems, is strategies and systems. That's it. But it's not a one size fits all, right? So we're going to talk about, well, how do I know which systems and strategies to implement in my business? We're going to get into that. Let's talk about what happens once you implement your personal customized strategies and systems into your culinary business, okay? So if you're of my generation, there used to be this like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs, right? However, not that extreme, but this is what your life and business looks like when you have strategies and systems in place. And a lot of times I think we just think as far as metrics, as far as, income, revenue, money is concerned, but there's so much more there. So when you have systems in place, you can rest. Because I want to say this is something I learned when I was working in food manufacturing. My previous career is in engineering. If you didn't know that, I used to be a chemical and environmental engineer before I became a chef. And I used to work in snack food manufacturing. And one of the things we always said in engineering is that a person is not a process. Because 1, it's hard to be consistent. And 2, that is how you lead to burnout. And also, humans are human. And that's how you get a breakdown in the system, because a person is not a process. A person can monitor a process. A person can manage a system. But the person themselves, you or people on your team, if you have people working with you, are not a process. So rest, right? When you have systems in place, you can have time for self-care. You can take a nap. Okay, let's just let that serve. You can take a nap if you need to. Guilt-free off days. Like, how many times have you been like, I'm not going to work today, and maybe it's not your regularly scheduled off day, but you just need a break, but you feel guilty the whole time because all you're thinking about is the laundry list of things that need to get done. You don't have to overwork, right? When you have systems in place. You can have playtime. You can have recess. Okay. You can travel more. You can actually take a real vacation, right? You can actually have hobbies because you turned your passion into your profession. And so now you need other hobbies, right? You can have time for that. You can spend time with your friends, with your family, with a significant other, right? You can lean more into those relationships, and you don't have to kind of be like, oh, sorry, I have to work, or I got to get caught up on work, or all that kind of stuff, right? You've got time freedom to do all the things you need to do, right? So, think about this, right? Just managing your household sometimes can feel like a full-time job, between like getting it clean, getting your laundry done, right? Grocery shopping, all the things, paying bills, calling the people out because there's a wasp nest, or because your garage, locked up on you or whatever, right? Like house management feels like a full-time job, and it is. I actually have a friend who owns a family staffing agency, and house manager is a big one. But even the stuff that you enjoy, right? So you're not working all the time. You have time for that. You have time to go to the gym, right? You have creative freedom when you have systems, because now that you know that these structural things in place and you have the infrastructure, it allows you to be more creative, right? I think about it like this. I kind of think about the difference between people who are very spontaneous and people who are very much planners, right? And what I have learned over the years is that when you plan, it actually allows you to be more spontaneous. But if you're solely spontaneous and you never plan, eventually that can get very stressful, right? And so, there's a happy medium, right? And so having systems and strategies in your business actually allows you to be more creative, right? And you can be more spontaneous with ideas and things because you have the infrastructure to support it, okay? Financial freedom, right? If you've got a marketing and sales system running in your business, which means something or someone or some system is always marketing and promoting your business, right? Then, the currency will flow. Hence currency. I wish you could see my face, right? But you can make the kind of money you want and deserve that that you're capable of making, right? You can have clarity. I remember when I didn't know what I didn't know, and I would wake up and be like, okay, I know I should be doing something today. I know I should be doing something to move the business forward today. I don't exactly know what to do. But when you've got that strategy in place, right, and you know where you're trying to go, and the GPS or your consultant kicks back, like, here's all the action plans, action steps you need to take, you know exactly what to do every day. And there's something about knowing what to do. Even if you feel like it's a lot of work, even if you feel like it might be challenging work, it's something about knowing that, I can get to the destination. I just need to get these things done, right? Consistency, right? Consistent results. You get off the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship. Okay. A lot of people talk about how difficult entrepreneurship can be and how challenging it can be and how, it's not for the weak. And I've always thought to myself, entrepreneurship is only challenging when you don't know what you're doing, right? When you don't know why you're having this issue and you don't know how to fix it, that is frustrating. But I always like to use the example of a little kid tying their shoes. When a little kid doesn't know how to tie their shoes, they are so frustrated. I mean, have you ever tried to teach a little kid how to tie their shoes? And have you ever seen a little kid who's been taught how to tie their shoes, but they can't quite consistently get it done? You have never seen frustration until you've seen a small child who wants to tie their own shoes. And the thing is, it could be really challenging for them because they don't know how to do it. But as an adult, when's the last time you thought about tying your shoes? And if it was difficult, it's a no-brainer, right? It's because you now know how to do it, right? And you've done it so much, and you know if you're a tie first or a loop first kind of person, right? You've got your own strategy for tying shoes, right? I know that seems really insignificant, but once you really think about it. And so here's the thing. If you knew okay, when I'm having these issues, I need to go check this system and I need to make these tweaks, right? You may not like the symptom that you're experiencing, but you at least have the tools in your arsenal, right, to be able to rectify it. And it becomes a lot less stressful and the results become a lot more consistent. And then also when you have systems in place, it's a lot easier to commit, right? I think about if we go back to the working out example, it's like if you don't have a strategy for what you want to do and if you don't know where you want to go and you don't have any systems, you may one day be like, I'm going to do diet and exercise. The next day you'd be like, nope, I want to take a pill. Next day you're like, no, maybe I should do surgery. And you're just hopping around from different approach to different approach. And you're actually not making any results, or you're not getting the results that you want because you haven't committed. But when you go, okay, I have a system in place and I know that systems work, no matter how positive or not positive the system is, they work, right? And they work if I work them. And then it allows you to commit to that system, Okay. So let's talk about the power of systems. Okay. And I really want you to get this, because systems is the thing that you've been looking for. Strategy, and to sustain it, you need a system, right? Systems are in service to your goals. They are the infrastructure that hold up your goals, right? They are the infrastructure. They are the conveyor belt that's going to get you to your goals, right? Systems create space for self-care, okay? For work-life balance. Systems are things that allow you to scale. You cannot scale without a system, right? Systems implement, execute, and maintain the strategies that you have in place. They create structures, right? And I want you to think about it like this. Imagine all the ideas that you have for your business are like the water in a river, right? Just a flowing and flowing and flowing. But if there's no riverbanks, if there's no dam, that water can get very destructive, right? Now, contained and within a structure, it is a life force. It is an ecosystem. It can be harnessed for energy. There's a lot of things that river can do. But when there's no infrastructure around that, we know what uncontained water looks like. It looks like floods. It looks like hurricanes. It looks like tornadoes. It looks like drownings. I mean, it can be extremely destructive to property, to people, to the environment when there's no structure to contain it, right? And so systems are that infrastructure for your business, right? That you can be as creative you want to be once you've got the structures in place, right? Systems, see, there we go. Systems allow room, make space for spontaneity. They minimize and eliminate stress. You know, I think about sometimes, and I've had clients who've had this experience, like their income keeps going up every year, but their stress around their money does not, right? You know, they could be having the best month they've ever had, making the most money they've ever had, and they're still stressed about it. And it's because what they did not implement was a system to know, this is how I know my income is coming in every month. This is how a predictable way that I know I'm bringing in more and more customers, clients, students, whatever have you, to the business. It feels like happenstance versus strategy and structure and systems. And when things feel like happenstance, that can create anxiety, right? And so anxiety will stress you out. Systems allow you to streamline. You get real clear about, I need that, I don't need that, right? They allow things to run smoothly. They create consistency, okay? Consistency. This is why we have standardized recipes, right? Because it's a system. Like, if I want to make this recipe the exact same over and over and over again, what's the exact system that's in place, right? This is why we use the metric system in baking, because it's a little bit more consistent. Systems make you feel safe, right? Your alarm system, okay? Depending on who you're talking to, the legal system. Okay, it's a joke. I'm not a very political person. But anyway, systems safeguard you from stress. Systems give you sustainable results. You get into your car and turn it on and you expect it to run the same way every time because of the systems in that engine. And then the moment that it's like, oh, there's a symptom, there's something's off, you know, I need to go get this checked. The check engine light, the system light comes on, because it's letting you know, hey, there's a breakdown in one of these systems. But outside of that, it's giving me sustainable results. I'm going to get in that car and it's going to drive smoothly every time, right? Systems keep life simple. Can I just tell you? I know sometimes people think about systems and they feel like maybe it's restrictive or it's a creative straitjacket or whatever the case may be, but it's actually the opposite. It keeps things so simple. I know what buttons to push, what keys to turn to get the results that I want. What could be more simpler than that, right? Systems minimize unwanted surprises, okay? So it's not that surprises are bad, but when you don't want them, okay, then you don't want them, right? Systems are a safe haven for your sanity. Systems are in service to your peace of mind, okay? Because otherwise it's confusion and chaos, right? You're just all over the place. I don't know what to do. You're just doing everything, okay? That leads to exhaustion and burnout and overworking and being overwhelmed. And then systems lead to satisfaction because it's simple, it's consistent, right? It's stress-free. You know, it's consistent, it's streamlined, it's smooth. Systems for the win. Systems help eliminate analysis paralysis, right? This is you're Google searching, trying to find a result every day. You're on YouTube trying to find a result every day. You're following all the business gurus. You're reading all the things. You're looking at all the businesses. You're like, I guess I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. I could. Analysis paralysis. It also helps eliminate decision fatigue. When it's like, okay, I've got too many choices. I've been making decisions all day long. When you've already got a system in place, you've made that decision one time, and now you're just maintaining it, right? Oh, I already said endless Google searches. Let's talk about it. Can we talk about the whole waking up in the middle of the night? Because your brain is on overdrive, trying to figure out how to get to the next level, right? How to solve that. Or maybe you're staying up late, right? Staying up late, getting up early, right? They help eliminate the overwhelm, the overworking and the under-earning, if that's what you've been experiencing. When you have systems in place, you can prioritize other things because the system is running in the background, okay? It eliminates burnout and confusion about what to do. We talked about that. So I just wanted to take a second to really dive into the power of systems. And now we're going to get into, so how do you know which systems you need first, right? Because I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I need 35 systems and I don't have but one. I don't want you to feel like that. You can be very successful as you start to add systems, but depending on how far and how big you want to grow. When you look at major companies, major corporations, they have whole departments that manage all these different things because those are whole systems, and the people there are just monitoring and constantly tweaking those systems, right? And so you may not have a desire to be a big corporation. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it doesn't mean you still need to have a version of those systems in your business. So we're going to talk about how do you know which systems you need to have in place, how to prioritize them, which ones to pick first, all of that. Let's get into that. So you might have the question, how do I know what strategies and systems to implement into my business? So you are understanding that the truth about entrepreneurship is being a great chef is a piece of the pie, but it's not the largest piece of the pie. That knowing business, being good at business is the key that's going to get you the results that you want. You know that you need to be spending the majority of your time in the chef to CEO and into the CEO role, and that you need to make that transition from chef to CEO, which is what we're talking about, which is putting forth the strategies and the systems that are going to grow the business, scale the business, give you the work-life balance that you want. We've talked about that your recipe for success is your unique skill set and your personalized, customized strategy for your symptoms, for your business, for what's going on, for what you ultimately want, your goals, and then also the infrastructure of systems to get you there and keep you there, right? And so now you're like, okay, great, I'm on board. I get that. It feels like a little bit of a shake your shoulder moment because maybe you've been living under the impression like, we're so good at what we do. I'm so good at what I do. And why is that not enough? Right. And so now you're like, listen, I get it. I need systems. I need strategies. How do I know which ones are for me, for where I am right now and for where you want to go right now? Right. So we're going to talk about that. What you need is a business audit and assessment. Right. So I kind of mentioned this before, but I want to go in detail about this. So I want you to think about this, right? If you get in your car and you hear a funny noise, right, you automatically know something is wrong. Or if the car is moving in a certain way, you already know something is wrong. And so typically what do? Right? If we're not an auto mechanic, then we take our car to a mechanic or to the dealership, right? And they run a diagnostic on it. They're going to ask us some questions. They're going to run a diagnostic. They're going to run different tests on it. They're going to look at the repair history by the VIN number. What do they used to call it? Carfax. They're going to look at all that kind of stuff. They're going to look at the make, model of the year, and they're going to do a full inspection. And, a lot of people get annoyed when the mechanics do that because they feel like, oh, they're trying to sell me all these things. And I'm not saying that they're not, right? I'm not saying that they're not, but I don't think it's as malicious as people think. What mechanics know is that if you can be proactive and catch something before it makes the check engine light come on before it makes you have to come in, that is going to be less expensive and less inconvenient to repair. Right. And so while you may have come in because you think something's wrong with your brakes, like you suspect there's something wrong with your brakes, and they're talking to you about an alternator. Right. And you're like, I didn't come in for an alternator. Listen, it is their job to do a full inspection of the car, because while there's lots of these independent systems inside of the vehicle, they work together to get the car to run. And also, I want you to think about it no different than a doctor, right? So if you're having a pain, or you've been feeling something kind of way, or you just can tell like something's off with my body, or something's off with my tooth or my gums or something like that, right? If you go, you're going to go into a doctor, because what you want is you want an assessment, basically, right? You want a checkup, right? What is happening? Use your expertise of the human body, right, to help me narrow down what's going on. And they're going to ask you tons of questions. They're going to ask you about your medical history. They're going to run all different types of tests. They might do blood work, right? Even if you fill out a questionnaire when you first get to the office, when the doctor comes to the room, they're going to ask you even more questions. They're going to check your symptoms, right? Blood pressure, height, weight. They're going to ask you about, are you sleeping? Are you pregnant? Are you this? Do you smoke? Do you drink? And you're like, I just answered that. They're going to ask you again, right? And they're going to do a full body checkup, even though you came to them and you were like, my toe hurts. Okay. Right. Because again, it would be considered malpractice for them not to analyze the whole human body, knowing that, yes, there are multiple systems in the human body, but they all work together and one can affect another. They're going to ask you if you're taking medication, if you're taking vitamins, if you're taking supplements. They're going to ask you, when's the last time you traveled out of the country, right? They're going to ask you a lot of things, because what they're doing is they're collecting data, and they're looking at the history of your health or the history of your vehicle, so that it helps them narrow down and focus. But they can't do that independently. It's kind of like when people say you can't create abs, like it's going to be a whole body workout, right? It's the same thing when it comes to your health. It's the same thing when it comes to your car. And it's absolutely the same thing when it comes to your business, right? And this is why I say, when people are just throwing out random advice, you can almost consider it business malpractice. It's why I don't do it. If you've ever DM'd me on social media, I always tell people that's probably the worst way to contact me, because I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and then I'm probably going to be like, hey, you need an assessment, because I need to see everything that's going on in your business. You may just think it's like, oh, I just need to change my pricing. And it actually could be nothing to do with your pricing. It could be your branding, right? Or it could be your inconsistent messaging, or it could be like, hey, you're really good at this, but you're offering this and you're confusing the people, right? So in order to answer the question, how do I know what strategies and systems to implement in my business? You need to audit and assessment, right? Any good consultant is going to audit and assess your business before they give you any kind of recommendations for strategies. No different than a doctor, no different than a mechanic, right? And so I want you to take some food for thought here. You can't scale your business if you don't know where the holes are, right? Which is why you need assessment. And this is why I encourage people to stop taking random courses and hiring random coaches, because it's like going to a pharmacy and just buying random medication. Like you don't even know what your ailment is, right? Like you're just buying stuff, and then you may be upset or disappointed or let down because you're like, well, it didn't really work for me. It was like, well, was that even your real issue? Do you even know? Right? Stop WebMDing your business. Listen, they tell you this all the time when it comes to being in. WebMD will have you out here thinking that you're going to die tomorrow because you've got 18 different types of cancer and you've caught a rare alien virus from outer space. Like, stop WebMDing your business, which is like, you're looking up things and you're taking on solutions and strategies, and you're assuming that that's what you have going on, but you haven't had a professional go, well, let's just take a look. And here's the thing. It's not that you may be wrong, right? I mean, a lot of times I find that people are wrong. I mean, listen, I've been doing this for a very long time. You may be in the ballpark, but they may give you this one thing that you're like, oh, I didn't even know to look at that or to consider that. Right? Or that to have that in place, or that I just needed to make this one change. And here you are thinking you just need to completely start over. Stop trying to self-diagnose and self-medicate, because that's how you end up wasting a lot of time. You waste a lot of money. You waste a lot of tears. You waste a lot of frustration. And it's so interesting because most of my clients and even most of my peers, we are in the phase of business. I don't want to figure it out myself. I want to hire a professional, and I want you to either do it for me or I want you to tell me what to do. That's it. Right? It's kind of like I'm in the phase of life. I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and wash my own baseboards. I'm going to hire somebody for that. Yes, the ceiling fan needs to be clean. I'm going to hire a cleaning company that's going to come once a month and do a deep clean on the whole house, or once every 2 weeks, or once a week, whatever your needs are, right? Because when you realize I know what I'm good at and I know what I do and I know where I fall on versus the chef, the manager, and the CEO, and my time is best spent in this particular area, then I'm going to hire out subject matter experts. I don't want to go learn how to be a doctor just to figure out and go to pharmacy school just to figure out how to write my own prescriptions, which I don't even think they can do that legally anyway. But you get my point, right? Stop looking at what other people are trying to do and copy it, because again, you don't know what their symptoms were in their business. You don't know what strategy they chose. You don't know what their end destination was. All you're seeing is pieces of tactics that they're doing, right? And you don't even know if it's working, all right? And I want to say this, general business consultants can only take you so far until you need a specialist, right? So I want you to think about it like this, right? Let's say you were having some pains in your chest, okay? And you went to your general practitioner, and the general practitioner is like, oh, I think you got XYZ going on or whatever. They're going to run some general tests and they're going to do some things. Eventually, though, depending on the severity of what you have going on, they are going to send you to somebody that specializes in that, which is why I always tell people, I'm like, yes, some general business coaches will say, well, I can coach any business, and they can to a point, right? And then there becomes things that are very, very intrinsic to that specific focus area that only people who are experienced in that area know. Your general practitioner cannot do brain surgery. Your general practitioner cannot do open heart surgery. Your general practitioner is not an OBGYN. Your general practitioner is not going to do a kidney transplant. They know enough to say, hey, it's your kidneys. It could be this. I'm going to send you to the kidney specialist. It's why I'm so focused on culinary entrepreneurs, specifically cooking class business owners, right? So whether you're doing online classes or you actually have a cooking studio, right? It's because I know the ins and outs of that so well, right? I've had clients in other industries or other aspects of the food service industry. However, what I know is that even though I wasn't even necessarily a general business coach, I've always been a culinary business coach, even though I have coached outside of the culinary industry at specific requests, right? I've always been a consultant, not a coach. We're going to talk about that. Consultant. At a point, I knew like, hey, you need a specialist. So I had a former client who eventually decided to open up a restaurant, right? I've never worked in a restaurant. I've done a lot of things in food, but what I have not done is worked in a restaurant. And once she opened a restaurant, I told her, I said, from henceforth, you are going to need a restaurant consultant, because there are things in the day-to-day operations in the restaurant specific industry that I am not privy to. I do not have the experience in to get you to that next level, because, once you cross, 100,000, 200,000 in an area that I'm not familiar with, we're talking a different ball game, right? It's like, yes. So did I get her from, $50,000 a year and now she's making $30,000, $40,000 a month? Great. But now that she has transitioned to a restaurant business model, she needs a consultant specific to that. General business consultants are great, but they can only take you so far. No different than your general practitioner. It's just like you can take your car in to get an oil change to almost any mechanic, right? But if you own a Benz, right, or a Tesla, right, or a BMW or a Volvo, at some point you're probably going to have to take it to a dealer, because that mechanic may be like, I know a lot about a lot, but this particular breed of car has some specialty parts or some specialty systems that they work with, right? And if someone is giving you business advice and they haven't started by asking you a ton of questions first. Consider it business malpractice. I really want to drive that in, because this is why so many people get burned. This is why so many people get disappointed. And again, it's not that these people are malicious or scammers or out to get you. It's just that they haven't considered that they're just giving tactics, and they're not a full-on consultant who's going to analyze where you are, what you've got going on, look at where you want to go, and then have enough breadth of knowledge to say, here's all the options that you can go down. And I also want to say this: stop taking advice from people who haven't done what you're trying to do. I'm always amazed at the amount of people who are like, yeah, I was talking to my family, and I'd be like, oh, do they work in the food service industry? No. Do they have a business? No. Okay, so then what are we doing here, right? And again, they love you. They have great intent. It's not even that some of their ideas are bad, but they have no idea what they're talking about. It's like, I could tell you all day, like, you should take this prescription, that prescription. And it's like, do you have this condition? Well, no. Are you a pharmacist? Well, no. Are you a doctor? Well, no. Then what are we talking about? Okay, so just some food for thought as you're thinking about, like, how do I know which systems to do for my business? So I want to talk about this, right? When it comes to knowing which systems and structures and strategies you need to have in your business, it's going to start with an audit and assessment, because you need to know, like, okay, these are my symptoms. Somebody needs to kind of go through. And sometimes when you're in something, it's really hard to take an objective view, right? It's hard to come out and give a macro view if you're all the way down in the weeds of a thing, right? So you need to know what systems are required in general that you may not even have in your business. Or when we talked about the no systems, an outdated system, a broken system, a system that needs to be expanded, an old system, all that kind of stuff. One, you just need to know, like, do I even have systems in place for all of these things, right? And then you need to know what your current situation is, right? Like, where all the holes are, right? Because if we go back to the doctor example, you may be like, my ankle hurts, and they may be like, hey, do you have a metallic taste in your mouth? And you might be like, what does that have to do with anything? But it might, because there's something that they know about the body systems that you may not be privy to, right? And then you have to match the symptoms to the system. Then that's when you go into strategy and all that kind of stuff, right? So, for example, if you were to come to me, obviously, I'm a culinary consultant, right? And say, Evelyn, let's go back to the cooking school example. My fill rate, my enrollment rate is low. For whatever reason, I can't get people, I can't get my classes to fill up, right? And, we go through and we realize that you don't really have a solid marketing system. Well, then I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of the marketing system and look like, well, do you not have a complete marketing system? What parts of the marketing system are you missing? What's your goal? If you're at 50% enrollment rate for your cooking classes, do you want to be at 75%? Do you want to be at 85%? What's good industry standard, right? For enrollment rate. Great. Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about, well, how many, classes do you want to offer? What's your pricing? All of that kind of stuff, because all of these are variables in that equation. And then I'm gonna audit your business and assess it, right? I'm gonna get into the nitty gritty of your business, where you currently are, what's working, what's not, what systems are in place, what's missing, what's getting in the way, and then you'll have a strategy moving forward, right? And so I want to say this when it comes to knowing which systems to attack first, or to put in place first. You want to think about, the desires, the needs, the challenges that you're having in your business. You want to think of like acute issues, and then you want to think of like chronic issues. Acute are sudden, but they're short term. So in the example of the cooking class business, an acute issue is I had an instructor call out to teach class tonight, and I have nobody to teach class, right? It's sudden and it's short. Now, if you take that same thing, you're like, I'm having people call out all the time, right? And this has been going on for a couple of months. Well, now that's a chronic issue. And we need to look at, okay, what's happening with staffing, what's happening with compensation, work schedules, things like that, on why people are calling in so often, right? If if people cancel classes because it was a snowstorm and your fill rate dropped for 3 days, right? Well, that's an acute issue, right? We don't like it, but we can pretty much see that, well, it was the weather and, okay, that sucks. It wasn't great, but it was acute issue. Yes, we lost revenue for those 3 days and we had to cancel 3 classes, and we've got all these ingredients that need to be used. So at least the food cost doesn't go to waste. A chronic issue is if that's happening weeks on end and it's not weather related, right? And so you want to look at what are the things that are acute in my business that is like, okay, is this something I can, fix very quickly? And if it is it going to have a significant impact? Is it acute but significant, right? Where it's like, it may be sudden, but it's a big deal. If that's the case, then you need to fix that first, right? However, what I have found most often in business, because acute issues sometimes are external things that happen to a business versus internal things. What I have seen more often than not is that a chronic issue that has gone on too long will start to feel like it's an acute issue. So let me give an example. Let's use the medical example, right? So let's say somebody gets shot. Okay, that is serious, but it's acute and it's external, right? Something happened. It was a stray bullet, maybe they were out, hunting and somebody else was hunting and they got shot, right? Let's use that for example. That's something that needs to be taken care of immediately. That person could also have diabetes, and at that point, it's irrelevant. Like, yes, the doctor is going to need to know that from the medical history, but right now we need to treat the wound, okay? Or if you were in a car accident or something like that, right? But let's say, you started fainting all the time and you went to the doctor and they were like, oh, you have diabetes, right? That's a chronic, that didn't come out of nowhere. That's something that's been building over time. But here's the thing, but now because you've let it go too long, it now has acute symptoms, but it's a chronic issue, right? So when you think about your business, if you keep going year after year and you're like, I'm not hitting my goals, or if you keep going year after year and you're like, I'm exhausted and I can't keep up and I keep, or I'm always stressed, that's a chronic issue. But what happens to most people is they wait till everything feels like an acute issue, and I will say this, I think about myself that, in 2016, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had 0 symptoms. I was asymptomatic. Do you know how I found out that I was diagnosed with cancer? Is on a regular checkup. I went in for my regular well woman exam, right? Because I was being proactive. I had no acute symptoms and I had no chronic symptoms, right? But what I was doing was being proactive with my health, right? And so because of that, I was able to get ahead of that. If you look at, from a medical standpoint, if you look at any association, they're going to tell you the best cure is prevention. Well, the same thing is true in business. Even maintenance on your car, to go back to that example, if you keep up on, okay, I've done this many miles, it's time to get new tires before the treads run out. Okay, it's time to get an oil change. Okay, at 100,000 miles, I need to check this. Okay, at this or whatever. And you're doing regular routine maintenance on your car. One, it's less stressful and it's less expensive and it's less inconvenient because now you're not on the side of the road with an engine that's locked up or a tire that's blown out, unless it was acute, like you ran over a nail, right? And so the same thing is true in your business. And, unfortunately, pain is a motivator for people and it's highly effective. But one of the things I want to tell you, and this is another truth about chefpreneurship, is part of your job as the CEO is to be proactive and stay ahead so that you can catch chronic issues before they become acute issues and you can minimize the occurrence of acute issues, right? Like I said, a lot of times those are external, right? And it's like, but they won't hurt your business as bad if you're staying on top of it. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a client who had a catering company that she had for a couple of years right before the pandemic, right? And we had been working on some different, ideas for her catering company. And it was interesting because while a lot of food businesses went out of business during the pandemic, she actually went up in sales, like in profit during that time because of so many things we had done proactively. There's no way we could have predicted a worldwide pandemic, right? None of us have ever lived through anything like that. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I was so grateful that she had put in the work when it wasn't crisis time on her business, so that here we go, she could pivot, be spontaneous, because she had the infrastructure, here we go, the systems in place to do that. And so all she needed during that time was a slight tweak to her strategy, because the environment around us had changed. The rules had changed. So it's kind of like you're driving down the highway and they're like, oh, this whole side of the highway, you can't drive that way. So now it's like, well, you still need to get to the destination, but the route might be different. And that's exactly what happened. Another truth you need to know about entrepreneurship is you've got to get out of the habit of being reactionary, and you've got to get into a habit of being proactive. I can tell you there's nothing more stressful for the business owner and for the consultant is when people come to me when they're in crisis and they need an immediate quick fix. And I always want to tell them, like, the problem is there's not a quick fix. You know, I had a previous client who wasn't hitting her revenue goals for her business. And like, she was bringing in great revenue, but it was feast or famine. And, you know, like, when you look at the end of the year, like, she made great money as far as revenue, but she actually ended the year in red. And I remember she decided to go sign up for this like coaching program that was a super significant investment, and basically felt like she wasted her money because she thought, and the way that was promoted, that it was going to be a quick fix for her solution. And what she realized is it was going to take just as longer as the things that I was consulting her about, right? And so, again, that's another hard reality. This is your job, is to mitigate risk, is to stay on the forefront, right? Again, this is why I say that if you're under this belief that you're going to be spending the majority of your time in the kitchen as the CEO of your culinary business, they lied to you. They lied to us. I want you to know all of your options, right? You can do a coaching program. That's very, very common. But a lot of coaching programs are what I like to call copy and paste, which means somebody did something, right? It worked well for them. And they're like, if you want to do what I did, do exactly what I did, right? There's no specialization to you. There's no customization. There's no consideration for your lifestyle capacity and goals. It's a one size fits all model. Okay. And here's the thing. People have had success with these, but when it comes to scaling and growing, I don't always think that coaching programs are the best fit for that, because like I said, there's no customization, no consideration for your lifestyle, your capacity, your goals, where you are and where you're trying to go. It's literally like they have this system that worked for them and their lifestyle and their goals at that time. And they're like, hey, just do what I did. Right. However, if you're a baker, one of the things is that baking at different altitudes will drastically change your end product, right? And so if all I ever know how to bake is at sea level, everything that I create is going to be for sea level. And if I've never had to experience baking at a different altitude, right, then I don't know how to tell you to do that. I don't know how to troubleshoot that. I don't know what to tell you when it's like when you're X amount of miles above sea level, right? And so I had a client work for me for years. She moved into an industry where I was not a specialist, right? And so I was like, hey, you need to, you need to find a consultant or a coach. She decided on a coaching program that is a specialist in what you do now, right? And so I remember her going through the program, and she was like, well, they keep telling me to do it like this and like this and like this and like this. And then she was like, with my lifestyle, she still had a full-time job. She was like, with my work schedule, whatever, like I actually physically cannot do that. And they don't have any other options for me. And so she invested all of these resources, all this money and all this time. And it wasn't that coach was bad or was malicious or whatever, but that coach didn't know strategy. They knew tactics. You do X, you do Y, you do Z, you should get the results. They didn't know how to explain, well, if you can't do it exactly like this, here's 2 other ways, here's 3 other ways that you can get to your desired outcome. And because of the nature of the program, right, it didn't allow for that. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with coaching if it's like you're trying to learn a specific technique or a tactic that someone did, but it's not going to give you strategy though. It's going to give you copy and paste, right? Courses and classes. When I tell you, let me tell you something. I know so many of my clients before they've gotten to me have taken umpteen thousand courses and classes, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with courses and classes, but courses and classes are designed to teach you a specific skill, a specific tactic, right? Here's how to do food photography in natural light. That is a skill, right? So we talked about your unique skill set, strategies, and systems. Most courses and classes are not teaching strategies and systems. They're teaching a skill. That's what they're for, right? They're teaching you how to make blown sugar roses. They're teaching you how to make tempered chocolate centerpieces. They're teaching you how to edit your food videos in mood lighting, right? They're teaching you how to do tablescapes, floral arranging, right? And so oftentimes when I see business courses, they're teaching you the skill of something specific. They're not actually giving you strategy and systems, right? So they're there to inform you, give you information, but they're not about transformation, right? And so you need to know the difference. And this is why I want you to know your options, right? When it comes to consulting, however, the definition of consulting is to seek advice from someone with expertise in a particular area, right? Okay, the solutions you receive are custom to you, your needs, and your business. And this is why taking random advice from strangers on the internet doesn't work, right? Are they custom to you, your industry, your specific thing, right? So I am a consultant, right? When you think about your specific business, you need a consultant. It's like I was saying that, I had a client who had a dance studio, right? And we were working on like her client retention and things like that or whatever, because her class business very similar to a cooking class business, which I specialize in, right? So from that standpoint, I was a generalist, semi-specialist as far as a brick and mortar class type business, right? And so we were able to significantly improve her retention rate. But then she's looking to build another studio, right? And we were like, hey, you need somebody who specializes in having multiple locations, who has built several dance studios, right? And she found a consultant who does that, okay? And so I want you to think about the same for you. And again, I feel like I'm just trying to give you all the game. I know this is a very lengthy training, but I feel like I want to give you all the game of all the things that I wanted people to tell me. What are your next steps when you're like, okay, I know that I need a business assessment, an audit, right, to know which strategies and which systems to put in place, right? So if you want to, you can book an audit and assessment with me, right? Obviously, culinary businesses, I have all the criteria for people who are the ideal fit. But I can tell you right now, if you're a restaurant business owner, that's not my area of expertise. If you are a food content creator, like a food blogger, or you create food content, that's not really my expertise. If you have a food product business, as far as like maybe you sell like some kind of sauce or seasonings or things like that, that's not my specialty either, right? Like, yes, could I coach you to a certain point? I could, but my specialty is those of you who are in the culinary education space, meaning you do cooking classes, whether you do virtual cooking classes, whether you do in-person cooking classes, whether you do private one-on-one lessons, whether you actually have a brick and mortar cooking school, whether you have like a cooking class membership, right? Things like that, or you're using cooking classes to sell your other products and services. That's what I specialize in. And so we can go through and look at, okay, here's all the systems, because someone who knows general business is not going to be able to tell you to go, well, let's take a look at the run of show of your classes, or let's look at how you're naming your classes to see, because these are the kind of classes that sell well based on your region or based on your culinary point of view, right? Or this is the format of classes, or here's the 23 different ways you can leverage cooking classes in your business, and here's the 27 different types of classes that you could offer, right? Let's talk about what your options are, right? Because you may say, Evelyn, I hear you, strategies, systems, be the CEO, learn the business side. If I really want to take this thing that I've been doing for these past couple of years to, my desired destination, whatever my goals are, right? And I want to say something to you that my therapist said to me a couple of years ago, which is you don't have to fix this if you don't want to, right? And so I want to be clear that my intention with this video, and if you're still with me, God bless you, because it is long, but I wanted to take all of my years, everything that I've ever wanted to say to every chefpreneur out there, and I wanted to put in this video. My intention with this is for you to be informed, for you to at least know what's the thing that you feel like there's something I'm missing, right? Like I'm doing all the things, I'm doing all this. There's something that I know I don't know, right? And I wanted you to know that it's not because you're not good or that your business is bad or that you're not talented or that you're not smart. There's none of those things, right? But I also want you to know that you actually don't have to fix it, right? If you're like, wow, that sounds like that's going to be a significant amount of work, or it sounds like, man, that's probably going to be a significant investment. You're not wrong, right? And if you're at a place where you're like, hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that level of work. I don't want to invest at a level to rectify those changes. That is your personal choice. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like my therapist said, like, hey, listen, if you see an area and you're like, you know what, it's painful, but I don't want to fix it. That is your choice, right? Or you could say, you know what, yeah, I want to fix it. I'm the kind of person that I think about it like this, right? I remember I used to have a Honda Accord, and I remember as it was getting older, and I learned this from my mother, that I would take it into the dealer and be like, fix everything that's wrong and just give me a bill, right? Because I had one too many situations of being on the side of the road in previous vehicles, right? When I had lesser reliable cars, I had one too many experiences of surprise, spend $2,000 to fix this thing. And I didn't want that anymore, right? And I remember I got in the habit of, I was like, I'm going to be extremely proactive when I do this next video. I mean, this is like circa 2006, right? And ever since then, I have applied that principle to different areas in my life. The moment I feel like, we might be going in the wrong direction, I'm immediately being proactive and like, let me rectify it from the beginning. I don't care if it's health. I don't care if it's a car. I don't care if it's my business, right? Because I don't like unwanted surprises, right? But here's the thing, your threshold and your tolerance and what you feel like you have the bandwidth for, that's going to vary by person to person. I'm never the consultant is going to be like, you just don't want to invest in yourself. It may not be the time. You may not have the mental bandwidth. You may have other things that are occupying your mind, your life, your time right now. And that's the case, right? What my job is to spill the tea and give you the truth. And that's what we're going to talk about in this section, right? So you have to ask yourself some questions, right? When you're deciding on, is this the time? Am I willing to do what it needs to do to get the strategies and systems that I want to scale my business, to get out of feast or famine, to get out of feast or fatigue, to get out of feast and frustrated, right? You have to ask yourself, how much is the stress costing you? And sometimes this is not a monetary number. Sometimes it is if the stress is attached to your health, right? But how much is it costing you? How much longer can you go being this stressed out, being this frustrated, right? How much is the inconsistent income costing you? Like, how much money are you missing out when you have those low months, right? But what is that also doing to your morale, to your stress, to your health, to the other things in life that you cannot do because you have inconsistent income, right? How much money have you spent on short-term solutions and short-lived solutions, right? These Band-Aids. You took a $99 course. You paid for a $300 little thing, right? Like, and again, nothing wrong with those, but you wouldn't be watching this far into this video if they had sustained you, right? And when you add all that up collectively, you get to decide, like, man, I've actually spent a significant amount doing all these little things, and none of them are really giving me what I'm looking for because I don't have a strategy in place, and therefore I don't have systems, right? How much longer can you go without self-care, right? Have you been all work and no play, all work and no health, right? And so now maybe your health is taking a toll. Maybe your mental health is taking a toll because you don't feel like you have the time or the resources, if that's the case, to prioritize your self-care. how much longer can you go with work-life balance, right? For my single chefs out there who want to be partnered, who want to be married, how much longer do you want to be working the way you're working and not putting priority on that? For those of you that are partnered and you want to have a family, how much longer are you going to push that off if that's really important to you, right? How much longer are you not going to travel and enjoy your hobbies, right? How many more holidays and things are you going to miss out with your family and friends because you're like, I'm not ready to put this in place, right? But if you're on the flip side, you may be like, no, now is the time, right? And so ask yourself, why is now the time to make the necessary changes? Why can't I wait another day, another week, another month, another year, right? You really need to ask yourself those questions, because sometimes you're like, listen, I don't want it to be the next year and I'm still where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where I am today, right? And then also ask yourself, do you want to mitigate systems or do you want to cure the root cause? And again, there's no judgment here, right? I'm a root cause person, right? So the moment I feel an ailment coming, yes, is it nice to get rid of the sniffles and the cough or the runny nose? But I'm like, I don't want to be unwell. So I want to get rid of what's ever making me unwell. And then the symptoms will take care of themselves. Where, there are people in my life, friends and family, who are like, I just want to get rid of the symptoms. I just want to feel better. I don't necessarily want to be better, right? They don't necessarily want to not be sick. I don't mind if I still have the cold. I just don't want to feel like I have the cold, right? Two very different people, two very different approaches to life. And there is no right or wrong answer, but you need to know and be honest with yourself about who you are and what you prefer. I know I am a root cause person. I want to dig it up the root. I want to fix it once. I want to fix it right. I don't want to deal with this again. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'm going to invest whatever I need to invest because I don't want this experience again. I want to nip it in the bud one time, right? And that's the kind of clients that I work with, right? So you may think and go, actually, no, I'm more of a symptoms person and I'm okay with that. Great. I think that's fabulous. And there are people who are really good about working and offering solutions for that. The women that I coach, the women that I consult, the women that I work with are like, no, I want to dig up the problem at its root. I want to fix it. I want to fix it right. I want to get it done. I want to be proactive. I don't want to wait till I'm in a crisis. I don't want to experience this. I don't want to see what it looks like if I wait another week, month, 6 months, year, right? I'm always surprised when I have people reach out to me and they're like, yeah, I was thinking maybe 6 months from now. Those people never come back. They're never ready, right? And here's the thing. You also need to ask yourself, and here's a question that I really wish people were honest about when it comes to chefpreneurship. Do you just want to cook and not do all the other things, right? Because after going through this training, I hope that, my intent is not to discourage you, but it's also to not have you out here with false expectations and hopes that a lot of the marketing on the internet will do. It's to give you a very neutral, informed perspective on what it really takes to grow your business and maybe why you've been frustrated that you can't get to the next level that it is that you desire. And I've had people over the years realize very quickly, like, I think I might want to go back to just being an employee because I really just want to do this part. I don't want to do all the other parts. And then conversely, I've had people who were like, no, like I really want to lean in and dig in and do this, right? Because, they learn to be just as passionate about the business side, or they decide I'm going to hire somebody, or they decide I'm going to work with somebody, right? To get to where I want to be, right? And so I want to say this to you. There's no right or wrong answer, but waiting is risky, right? And I would be remiss not to, again, give you all the truth, right? That's the whole theme of this video, is the truth about chefpreneurship. And one of the truths is waiting is risky, right? Here's what happens when you wait. It costs money. Let's just be clear, right? I want you to think about it like this. An emergency is always more expensive than than maintenance, right? Think about that. And it costs money in lost revenue, lost opportunities, more expenses, spending money on short-term solutions is going to cost you money, and not money that you're going to get an ROI on, right? It may cost you your health, prolonged stress, prolonged burnout, want to quit, not making time for yourself. And so you just keep putting your health on the back burner, and it will catch up with you if you keep ignoring it, right? And keep not making it a priority because you're so focused on these other things, right? It's going to cost your relationships. If you can't get your stress under control, you can't get your schedule under control, all that kind of stuff, it is going to spill over into business relationships, right? Maybe with your clients and customers, maybe with peers, your family and friends, your focal relationship, your significant other. It does spill over, right? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? The longer you wait, the more of a burden it becomes, right? So it gets worse. And I think about this, right? You always hear people give the example, like, let's say somebody broke their arm, right? And they didn't go and get it casted, or they didn't go and get it fixed. And then, they wait, and maybe the bone grows back. Well, now the doctor has to re-break the arm, which I hear is significantly more painful than the initial incident, to set it right. And so I have worked with people over the years who were like, I've been having this issue for X amount of years. And it's like, man, I really wish they would have come to me earlier, because the amount of work we had to do to rectify something that they've been putting on the back burner and ignoring, I'm going to get to it, was so painful. Sometimes they want to quit, right? And they're like, oh, I just wish I would have took care of this when it first started happening, right? More burnout, right? Going around putting out fires every day. If you want to be a firefighter, go work for the fire station. Doing that in your business is the quickest way to resent it, is the quickest way to regret it, and the quickest way to burn out, right? The biggest one to me is you end up wasting time, because the time is going to pass anyway. Whether you decide that this is the time that you want to get, I don't even want to say serious, because it's not that you're not serious, right? I don't want to be insulting, right? But if you decide, like, you know what, I don't want to do the strategy, right? I don't want to do the systems right now. I just want to kind of keep my head down and keep doing what I'm doing. That's fine. But the time is going to pass anyway. And time is the only non-renewable resource that we have, right? And you have more of the same. Same place with the same challenges next week, next month, next year, right? And so you have options, right? You could wait, or you could do it now. But keep in mind, emergency room bills are always more expensive than wellness checkups, right? If you've ever had to go to the emergency room, listen, people will tell you they avoid emergency rooms like the plague. They could have just been in a car accident, like, oh, don't take me through the emergency room, because that bill is astronomical, right? It's the same with car repairs. Going and get maintenance on your car is way different than if your engine locks up on the side of the road, right? Because now you're going to have to spend the time, whether you have it or not, right? Because now you got to get a tow truck, extra expense, right? You got to get a special part and this and all that. The longer you wait, the worse it can get. It can get more painful and more expensive to fix later. This is in your business, in your health, in your life, in relationships, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. You have options. And I also want you to keep in mind that the opportunity is not always there. And let's take it to something a little less dramatic, a little less serious, right? How many times have you seen something in a store and you're like, oh, I love that. I've been looking for that for months. I've been looking for that exact fill in the blank, right? Outfit, piece of furniture, whatever. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to wait, right? Yes, I've been wanting to get this for months. So it's not a sudden decision. Right. And that's what people say. Well, I got to think about it. And I'm like, well, you've been thinking about it for 6 months to a year, 2 years in your business. It's not a sudden decision. But you see that thing that you've been looking for, and that you're like, man, I need that. I have been looking for this exact thing. Is exactly what I need. And then you go, oh, I'm going to wait. And then you come back and it's gone. And there's no way for you to get another one. And you're like, I should have got it when I had the chance. Right. I've had that experience in my own life, right? Oh, I was going to enroll in somebody's program. I was going to work with somebody, and then they closed their business or they went on to something else, or they no longer offer that thing. And you're like, what? I need that, right? Or I don't care if it's an outfit or something for the home or whatever. And you're like, oh man, I really missed out. And then it's like your search has to start all over again, right? So it's just something to keep in mind that you do have options. And again, don't let people make you feel bad. Again, the goal of this video is to tell you the truth and for you to make an informed decision and say, I know the pros, I know the cons, and based on where I am, this is the best decision for me to move forward. That is the whole goal of this video. These are all the things that I wish people would have told me earlier in my business. You know, after I had got a couple of years on my belt and I was like, okay, you know, I knew what they were talking about, all that kind of stuff. So if you've made it this far in this video, listen, I hope, you know, you have been taking notes. I hope that you will watch this again. I hope you will share this with a friend, a colleague, you know, another person in the industry that you think is beneficial. And you may have been wondering, who the heck is this woman that's been talking to me for all of this time? So allow me to introduce myself. So I'm Chef Evelyn. I am a culinary strategist and consultant, and I help chefs scale their cooking class businesses with customized strategies and systems. So I think I might have mentioned this before, that I am a former chemical and environmental engineer who left corporate America. I was in food manufacturing and decided to go to culinary school, start my own business, and now I help chefs grow their cooking class businesses. Now, when I'm not doing those things, I am a music lover. I tell people if I wasn't in the food space, I would be a Quiet Storm DJ. I love luxury makeup. I love dance. I started taking ballet and modern and jazz at 40. And I'm a home decor enthusiast, and recently fallen back in love with romance novels. So I'm a book girly, I'm a makeup girly, I'm a dance girly, a music girly, and a home decor girly. Okay. So like I said, my background, BS, chemical environmental engineering, double majored, and then also decided to go to, culinary school and did both a associates of applied science in baking and pastry arts and in culinary arts. So sweet and savory, right? And I will say this, from engineering to entrepreneurship, my entire career has been in food. I started my first food business when I was 15 years old, and I've never not had a food business, right? So started with selling pound cakes and desserts, would work at a catering company when I wasn't interning in the summers in engineering school, worked in the campus cafeteria, and then, you know, graduated, like I said, started working in engineering, and was always doing something on the side, right? Had one failed attempt at going to culinary school. My schedule just wouldn't permit it. And then eventually, after 5 years as an engineer, I went to culinary school while working full time. Okay. Listen, your girl was out here. And so this is just, you know, pictures of me over the years. I actually have done catering. I've done personal chefing. I've done a little bit of culinary R&D. I've done, you know, institutional or corporate cooking and baking for colleges and businesses, a little bit of product development. Obviously, I've worked with brands. I've traveled around the country with brands. I've been a brand ambassador. I've done some media. I've done some content creation, all in food. I've had a podcast. I've a food journal planner, a cooking activity book. I've done a lot of things. And then I found cooking classes and I fell in love. So just to give you a little quick run through of my cooking class career. In 2009, I started as a kitchen assistant at Sur La Table. And that's when I was like, this is the thing. And so I was just assisting the instructors there. In 2010, I did my first online cooking course before there was an Instagram, right? And then I started teaching. So I moved from assistant to teaching cooking classes at Sur La Table. I started offering online cooking classes before there were online cooking platforms, before online cooking classes were a thing in 2011. And I became a lead at Sur La Table. In 2012, I started offering cooking classes to my own personal chef and catering clients. By 2013, I was the cooking school manager at an award-winning cooking school. And so I had a team of chefs underneath me, and I ran that whole operation for several years. And then I started getting paid to create content for kitchen appliance brands, random brands, all cooking class related content. I started doing media, TV, demos, festivals, hired as a guest instructor in 2014. So as you can see, the cooking class business is progressing. 2015, I continued to offer online cooking classes and workshops. I also started a cooking class membership. 2016, started traveling and doing in-person corporate cooking classes. And if you remember the social media app Periscope that was attached to Twitter, now X, at that time, they voted me top 5 cooking channels in the world. And I remember I started trending and I was teaching like 20,000 people how to cook live, unbeknownst to me. So that was fun. 27, I went deep into online cooking courses released for that year. I was still doing corporate cooking classes at that time. I then did a favor for a previous boss and I became the resident chef at Sur La Table and was running their cooking class program, had several chefs under me there. Then in 2019, I started teaching chefs how to have their own cooking class business. 2020, obviously corporate cooking class clients increased dramatically online. So I went from doing in-person and traveling around the country, doing in-person corporate cooking classes to virtual, continued through the pandemic. 22, I decided to retire and focus on consulting chefs around their businesses. 2023, I started missing cooking classes, and I thought about returning 2024. I've decided to dip my toe back in the pool just for fun because I love it so much, and teaching chefs how to do the same. So that's my little brief career timeline. Like you see, I've done cooking classes in so many different formats, whether it's on TV, whether it's in person, whether it's workshops, whether it's in people's homes, whether it's in a studio kitchen, whether it's in a conference room, whether it's at a festival, whether it's online. Cooking classes is really my favorite. And one of the through lines is that between running award-winning cooking schools and doing my own cooking classes, I have learned that there are some things that you need to have in place to scale these things. And so I'm excited to share that. So like I said, if you are like, hey, okay, I know I need some strategies, I know I need some systems, I invite you to schedule an audit and assessment, right? I'm going to leave the link to do that beneath this video, right, with all of the details about how you do that, what the investment is, what's the process. This is really simple. You're going to fill out the initial questionnaire. You're going to select a day and time that works for you. You're going to fulfill the payment for the assessment, and then you'll follow the steps to confirm. And when you do that, I look forward to speaking with you. So, let me know how you have enjoyed this training. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope that it has been beneficial to you. I hope that you share it. I look forward to talking with you. And yes, listen, this is the truth about chefpreneurship.